The events that go beyond the understanding are very real. I am Nina, and today I am going to tell you my story. It is the story of my life, a story that, as the English say, is in continuous progress. It started in the past and continues even today. Subscribe, because this story is not a simple story. It is a testimony, a warning, and perhaps, for some of you, a awareness. I am from Cameroon, Central Africa. When I was 16, my aunt, whom I considered my second mother, kept repeating to her daughter that we had to marry white people. It was a kind of obsession for her, a piece of advice she gave me as if it were an evidence, a necessity. At that age, I was not interested in men yet. It was normal. I was still a teenager concerned with other things. But this speech kept coming back, like a little background music in my mind. We lived in Kribi, a balneary town known for its paradise beaches and its pleasant climate. Every year, tourists flowed everywhere, and among them, many whites came to enjoy the sun, the sea, and the desert. In this town, many local families were feeding on a specific dream: seeing their daughters attract the attention of a white man, get married with him, and thus change their lives. This dream, often maintained from generation to generation, was perceived as a royal path to a better future. A marriage with a European meant a life of comfort, opportunities, and, above all, the hope of a rapid social ascent. At the time, I was studying in a school building located on the seashore. Behind the school, there was a beach, and I liked to go there to sit to think and let my mind wander. It was then, in front of the waves, that these words turned in my head, again and again. Marry a white man, change your life, have a better future. These ideas ended up anchoring themselves in me, even though, at that moment, they remained still abstract. Then, I was 17. Like all the young girls my age, I began to become interested in men. But one thing was bothering me. While the idea of being with a white man seemed almost like a destiny drawn by my aunt, reality was quite different. No white man crossed my path. It was only black men who came to me, who were courting me. And I, in my head, formatted by the repeated words of my aunt, I wondered why? Why is no white man interested in me? One night, as I was leaving high school, I was walking along the seashore with my friends, as we were used to. The air was fresh, the waves were soothing, and we were quietly discussing everything and nothing. Suddenly, a car suddenly stopped at our height. Inside, a man. A white man. He was beautiful, well-groomed, and seemed to be about 30 years old. Even before we could react, he shouted my name with a strong and reassuring voice. Nina. We all jumped over. This scream, launched with so much conviction, stuck us on the spot. I instinctively turned around, surprised. My friends, as surprised as I was, immediately looked at me and said to me, "He's calling you. He's calling you, Nina." I looked at them, confused. "But I don't know him," I replied, beating heart. The man, still in his car, insisted. He seemed sure of himself, as if he had known me forever. He finally got out of his car and moved towards us. Instinctively, we accelerated the step to overtake him. I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to talk to him. All this seemed so strange to me. But he didn't give up. He rushed towards me, and with a smile both happy and troubled, he said, "But it's me, I found you." I looked at him, totally disconcerted. "But I don't know you. Are you kidding me?" He continued to smile, gently shaking his head. "Yes, it's me. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is that I looked for you. And today I found you." My heart started beating faster. What he said made no sense. Who was this man? Why did he act as if he knew me forever? And above all, how did he know my name? Jean-Marc was a magnificent man. A white man with a charming charm. He had perfect features, an elegant look, and eyes of translucent blue, almost unreal. He released something magnetic, an aura that instantly captivated. In my heart, a thought came to me. Wow, such a beautiful man, that's not possible. I was fascinated, troubled, but also suspicious. How could he know me when at that time, I didn't go to any white parties? I didn't understand. He asked us where we were going. Without thinking too much, my friends and I got into his car. He first dropped us off, my friends and I had to go to the supermarket again to buy some groceries for my mother. When we arrived at the mall, he insisted on doing the groceries in my place. I had never experienced something so surprising. He filled a whole caddy, buying for my house provisions at a price of 280,000 francs CFA. I didn't come back. When he brought me back, I didn't want him to drop me off in front of my house. My neighborhood had nothing to attract. It was a modest neighborhood, and I was ashamed that he saw the misery in which I lived. So I asked him to drop me off a little further, on the road. He didn't insist. Before I got out of the car, he waited for a business card. If in 3 days you didn't call me, I would come and find you myself. Then he took out a small medal. He put it in my hand with a sweetness that made me shiver. Keep it preciously. I looked at it. It was an old medal, with a picture of him inside. A little boy with blonde hair. It was me when I was a child. I took the medal, troubled, without knowing why this gift was uncomfortable. Then I picked up my bags and went home. But something strange happened. While transporting the groceries, I lost my business card. Impossible to find her. As if she had become a volunteer, and with her, the possibility of contacting him again. At the end of the 3rd day, I still couldn't call her. I had searched the map everywhere, but she seemed to have become a volunteer. Then, on the 4th day, an unexpected surprise was waiting for me. As I left the house, I saw her, Jean-Marc, standing in front of my door, and beside him my cousin. I was amazed. "But how did you find me?" I asked him, a credulous man. He simply smiled at me, with that confident look that characterized him. "I told you, I'll find you." From there, our relationship was born. We started dating, and things quickly got more serious. Jean-Marc didn't want to waste time. He wanted us to get married. We finally got married. But during the wedding preparations, I discovered something strange. Jean-Marc had no papers. He had no documents proving his identity. No administrative records. When I asked him for explanations, he told me a disturbing story. He told me that he had been beaten and that he had been stolen all his papers. He had nothing left. At that time, I did not doubt him. After all, he seemed sincere and sure of himself. So I accompanied him to the French consulate to make a declaration of loss. His file was taken care of, and shortly afterwards he obtained new identity papers. With these new documents, we were able to get married. The ceremony took place at the French embassy in my country. Everything seemed perfect. Jean-Marc and I were officially united, and we began our lives together in an apparent harmony. Our daily lives were comfortable. We traveled a lot, discovering the world together. We went to the United States, South Africa, and even to Dubai in 2003, at a time when this city was not yet the symbol of the luxury and the greatness it is today. We went everywhere, except in France. It was strange, but Jean-Marc always avoided talking about his native country. He had entrusted me that he was an orphan, that his parents were killed in a plane crash. He never mentioned his family, did not mention any brother, no sister, no close ones staying in France. He seemed to want to turn the page on his past. I loved him, so I did not ask too many questions. After all, we were happy. We had 3 children, 2 boys and a daughter. Our life seemed idyllic, even perfect. Jean-Marc encouraged me to invest, to secure our future. Under his impulse, we invested in real estate, buying several properties to ensure our financial security. Despite this, a strange detail persisted in our lives. I regularly went to France with our children for the holidays, but we never went there together. He always had an excuse. He told me that he had no family there, that he had no ties, and that it was useless to go there together. For 19 years, we lived like this. Our first son was born 2 years after our marriage, but before that, we had encountered a problem. I couldn't get pregnant. We did medical exams to understand why. But what was disturbing was that Jean-Marc never took any medical tests. He always found a pretext to avoid going to see a doctor. And when I asked him to take a blood test, he avoided the conversation. I then realized something strange. In 19 years of life together, I had never seen him bleed. Never a cut, never an injury, never a drop of his blood had been spilled in front of me. It was as if he was hiding something, as if part of him was completely escaping me. And yet, despite all these anomalies, I never dared to ask the real questions. Because I loved him. Because I thought that some things might not need an explanation. But I was wrong. The truth was far more frightening than I could have imagined. One fine day, Jean-Marc started to talk to me about his departure. The time has come. I have to go back. I have already exceeded the deadline. His words have frozen me. Back where? What deadline are you talking about? I asked him, confused. But he remained evasive. He avoided my questions, as if he couldn't tell me the truth. Yet something in him changed. He became more and more sad, more locked up. Every day, I saw him sink a little more into a silent melancholy. Sometimes, he locked himself in his office for hours. He didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't answer calls. When he finally got out, he forced himself to smile in front of the children. But I could see that something was wrong. One day, I was surprised and cried. I ran to him. Jean-Marc, what's going on? Do you have a problem? Tell me, I can help you. But he shook his head and always answered the same thing. I'm sorry. I have to go. I have to go back. I was called for another mission. A mission. I thought he was talking about leaving my country. Maybe for a job abroad. We lived in Africa, and I thought he had to leave for France, Europe, or maybe another faraway country. So, naively, I said to him, there's no problem, we'll go with you. I'll go back and forth. But he shook his head, looked serious. No, you can't come with me where I'm going. These words left me perplexed. What was he talking about? I thought he had to go somewhere far away, in an inaccessible area, a place far away like the Amazon, or maybe a humanitarian mission in a war country. Then, the 2019 holidays arrived. And against all odds, he told me that this time we would all go together to France. I was relieved and excited to finally travel with him in France, the one who had always refused to take me to his country. So, without further question, I prepared the trip with the children. We took the plane to Paris. But what I still didn't know was that this trip was going to change everything. We finally arrived in Paris, but Jean-Marc didn't want us to be late. We went straight to Bordeaux. He told me he had everything planned. At the airport, he had rented a car. And after having installed the children in the back, he entered a mysterious address in the GPS. I didn't know where exactly we were going, but it seemed determined to lead us there without wasting time. We took the road. The children, exhausted by the journey, fell asleep quickly in the back. I was looking at Jean-Marc, who remained silent, focused on the road. He seemed worried, lost in his thoughts, but I didn't dare to break the silence. After several hours of driving, we stopped in a small rest area, a place with a gas station and a few shops. Jean-Marc parked the car, then turned towards me. I'm going to take a quick turn, put some fuel in, don't get out of the car, I'll be back in less than 5 minutes. I nodded, tired. He left, and I looked out the window as he disappeared behind the gas station. But 5 minutes have passed, then 10, then 20. He never came back. After 30 minutes, I started to find it strange. Something was wrong. I got out of the car, leaving the children inside, and I went to get it. The rest area was not big, just a service station and 2 or 3 small shops. I turned around for a moment, scouting every corner, but no trace of Jean-Marc. My heart beat faster and faster. I even went to check the men's toilets. Nothing. He had disappeared. I turned back to the car, panicking, hoping he would be back in the meantime. But no. The children were awake now, worried too. We waited another 45 minutes, hoping to see him come out of nowhere, with an excuse, an explanation. But he still didn't come back. More than 1 hour and 30 minutes of waiting, alone, in the middle of nowhere, with my children. I didn't understand anything. Where were they? Why did they leave me there? What was going on?